Good afternoon, Bill. Al, how we doing?
Good, very good.
We'll fire up here.
Whoa!
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency to order. Roll call, please.
Matt Conant,
Present.
Nicholas McKelly,
Here.
Bruce Johnson,
Here.
Bill Conley, Todd Kimmelshoe,
Here.
Bo Shepherd,
Here.
Mark Boomgarden,
Here.
Wade Kirchner,
Here.
Al Montna, Drew Stresser,
Here.
and Chris Schmidl.
Here.
Okay, will we please rise for the pledge? Wade, would you like to lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, time for public comment. Members of the public will be allowed to address the Sutter Butte Flood Control Agency Board of Directors on all items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter and jurisdiction of the board. Any member of the audience who may wish to bring a matter before the board that has not been placed on the agenda may do so at this time. However, the state law provides that no action may be taken on any item not appearing on the posted agenda. Any public comment? Any comment online? We can't, nope. Okay, moving on. Consent calendar. Consent calendar consists of a group of items together, items that are considered non-controversial or which prior policy direction has been given to the staff that require only routine nature action by the board. The chair will be advise the audience that that matter may be adopted by one total motion. However, the board may, as option or upon the request of a member of the public, consider any matter separately.
Move to approve.
1, 2, 2. Yep. We have a motion.
Second?
Second, McKibbleshoe. We can do it just oral, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed unanimously. Okay, item number 3, information and possible approval items. Authorization of Director Task Order 1, City of Oroville to provide planning support and improvement on levee along the banks of the Feather River. Michael.
Mr. Chairman, Director of Engineering Chris Fritz will provide this presentation.
Oh, okay.
Hello, members of the board. Good to see you all again. Chris Fritz, Director of Engineering. I have just one slide here that I'll go over to introduce this item. If you remember back earlier this year, this agency was requested to see if we could help provide assistance to address some of the deficiencies that have been identified in the City of Oroville levee. That levee is shown here in the figure in red. It runs about a mile starting at Highway 70 upstream, right adjacent to the downtown parts of the city. We coordinated with City of Oroville staff and worked to develop a services agreement that we brought before this board back in June of 2023 for approval. And that agreement basically established the framework for how this agency could provide support and assistance to the city. And it was identified that that support would occur on a task order basis where we would identify a specific scope and budget that would be then brought before this board and the city's city council prior to execution of any work. Since that time, we have worked well with city staff and have developed this task order number 1. So this task order would basically allow this agency to provide assistance with 2 primary tasks for the city. One of them would be to help gather additional data and to help identify potential funding sources. So basically allowing us to expend effort to look into more detail with the findings and recommendations that the city procured back in 2015 with the engineering work that they did, and then to help identify potential sources of funding to advance some of those recommendations. The second part of the work would consist of advocacy and assistance with grant applications. So after identifying potential funding sources, working with the city to develop the applications and submit those in addition to advocating for the need. The City Council did approve this task order at their last City Council meeting last Tuesday. The task order is for an amount of about $52K, and that would be procured on a time and materials basis, where then this agency would essentially submit invoices to the city for reimbursement. So the next step is to bring this task order before this board with the recommended action to review, approve, and delegate authority to our executive director to execute the task order and then to execute the contracts with the Sbfca staff consultants as necessary for carrying out the work. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you for any questions or comments.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kimmelshue.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for that. So I should know this because it's my county, but maybe you or Bill can answer this. On the east side of that levee, does the levee just stop right there? And does then, what happens if it floods, if Feather River floods to the east of that? Where's the water go? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know. We really haven't expended much effort to this point on diving into the technical details and the work that has been done, but that is exactly what's part of kind of number one there, is diving into that to learn more.
So briefly, the levee that you see, the core of it was built around 1915 after a devastating flood that killed up to 10,000 Chinese, anywhere from 2 to 10, nobody really knows. And the levee has a core, maybe a 6-inch concrete core with Fresnos and mules. Then it was added to in the 30s, just when they dredged out the river, they added to it and it's wider. For example, the municipal auditorium used to cantilever over the river. Now it's way back from the river. It has 2 major boils. One's up by the transmission shop there. I don't know the address. The other's down by the tennis courts that old timers always watched whenever the water was high. As for the end of the levee, we were working on that through a different grant where we're looking to lower the west side levee to allow surge flooding to flow away, because they show Highway 70 as a levee, and it's not. It's a permeable, pretty permeable barrier with holes in it to let water out and so forth. This is the first time we've had this much cooperation from Warville. They're due up for certification in the next 4 years. We heard that right here on it. And if they don't pass certification on the levee, the whole downtown will be in a flood zone. At 162 or 167 cubic feet per second, Feather River Boulevard did flood. It flooded on Montgomery Street up to Feather River Boulevard and down towards the old LP mill. It flooded quite deep, all the way back up almost to the sewer ponds. So operations of the dam are look like they could go 200,000, and so that's another project we're working on getting that map to understand who needs to be evacuated so we don't over-evacuate, and understanding what the operations of the dam could do to us, which brings us to one more subject, a little off track, but they're going to use climate forecast-based operations. We have to all, especially us downstream, and I live right there now, so it's different than when I lived where it wouldn't flood too, I tell you. We have to make sure that they don't use that to deliver water over our safety, and understand that if they think they know more than they know, and they know more than God or Mother Nature, or however you want to look at it, they're going to flood us more often. So we have to be diligent in holding DWR and Army Corps accountable for any flooding that will come from this. But I really appreciate the support for this, and I think the city of Wareville, we asked them to join this. I asked them to join when they first formed this, thinking that there was a need for it, and was rejected. So the new city council and the mayor come to see the light, especially with that pending about 4 years being mapped into a flood zone. Thank you.
Question, so,
Good enough.
yeah, good history and background. But, so my question is, you know, a lot of times when we build these levees, we need more space than the original levee for setbacks. How do you think that is, Bill? You think that's gonna be a problem? Because a mile, that'd be a lot of business if they're right against the levee. Are they or not?
I don't think that, I think that at the worst, we'd have to slurry wall down the middle of it. But you're right, there are problems. You're not going to get, and it's quite wide in areas. I mean, like, from here to that building over there, you know? I mean, so I don't know. I guess that's what the study will prove. There's been talk about building on the levees. Believe it or not, there's talk about taking levees down for easier road access. There's talk about putting gates in the levees, all of which they need to be educated that they need this, you know, this flood control.
Okay, well, thanks. So at this point, we need a motion, correct?
Yes.
So
Motion to approve.
we have a motion by Conley and.
I'll second.
Second?
Chris.
Okay, yeah. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passed unanimously. Okay, Zeph. Presentation of monthly financial report.
We don't have a license for this. Get the credit card out and send them this. You use it on Microsoft.
Yeah. If,
I'll speed up, get through this real quick. So we have about 28.5 million in working capital through the end of the month of August. And that goes down to about 25 million, basically updated to date. And the big change is a net difference between assessment revenues coming in for the first, that's part of the year, and our next debt service payment of about 6 million. So the net's about $3 million in working capital difference. So the revenue for 22-23 shown there, 822,000 in the operating fund and about 750,000 for 23-24. That's an accrual. That 750,000 is basically a projection of what we would receive in December. Or closer to January, once the December tax installments are apportioned. From a capital revenue perspective, about 16.7 for last year, and 23-24 we've received about 22,000 in cash. I think that was a apportionment of not sure exactly what that was. I think that was an interest, a portion to the capital fund in this year as of the end of the first quarter, and then about $2,050,000 is our estimate and accrual of assessment revenues, a low estimate for our for revenues in coming in January. So the difference in the capital revenues is about 3.3 between what we received at the end of August and to date. And that's made up, again, of assumptions regarding about 2.8 million of assessment revenue coming in January, and then about 520,000 in operating revenues. You add that together with our pending payments as of August 31st, that gets you to about 3.3 million and the changes in revenue between what's the end of August and to date. The pending payments were shown here and listing here in total. So in terms of our expenditures to date, we spent about 6.6 million through August of 2023. That's made up of about 6.5 million from last year and another 124,000 to date for this fiscal year. And again, we're just showing both fiscal years right now until we complete our audit by the end of this calendar year in December. So for this meeting and then the meeting in December, we'll go ahead and continue to report on both fiscal years till we close out 22-23. Our next debt service payment is due about 1.6 million in April. We paid our October payment. That's about $6 million total payment, and that was due back in October. And that's was paid in the month of September, so that's why it's accrued for this fiscal year to date. In terms of our financial activities going forward, we're working hard on the closeout of our EIP UFR agreement. A lot of that official we will close out. It's all pending the right-of-way transfers and issues related to finishing up on the Star Bend setback area and closing that transaction, and then transfers of right-of-way to the Central Sacramento San Joaquin Drainage District and the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. In terms of our other grants related to the Oroville Wildlife Area through Wildlife Conservation Board, CDFW, and DWR. We have various grants in different stages, processing payment requests, closing out some, and preparing reports for claims. And then for our DWR Small Communities Grant, continuing to process payments and doing the quarterly reporting there. Same with our CNRA sediment removal grant. With respect to the Sutter Bypass East Levee Project Agreement, we've prepared our first quarterly report. We're in the process right now. That's a newer grant that is just starting up. We were working through the tracking processes last month and are getting those finalized and the first quarterly report submitted. Same situation with our RFMP Phase 4 grant. This program was taken over. Phase 3 was with Three Rivers Levee Improvement Authority as the lead on the grant for the region. Now we're taking over as the lead on the grant for Phase 4. We just submitted our first quarterly report and continuing to facilitate coordination with the steering committee, and then also looking forward to Phase 5 as well. With respect to agency administration items, we've completed our assessment district administration for 23-24. All the direct bills were mailed out for Sutter Butte and Feather River West Levee Financing Authority. The next step as it relates to the assessment district for Sutter Butte is preparing our bond disclosure report that's due at the end of March of next year. The regional levy impact fee, Michael will report a little bit on this during the program project update, and we're continuing to support working through the adoption process. The last step is to work with the city of Live Oak and Yuba City. And we do have an item scheduled for Live Oak in mid-November. And then we're working on our annual audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023. We've had our entrance interview, and we have some work to get materials over to the auditor, but the expectation is that will be completed in December and presented to the board at its January meeting. So that's about it for my report. Happy to answer any questions. We did make available the August report. We do owe the board the July report that was reviewed by Yuba City. We just didn't get the signature page, so that'll be transmitted to the board here soon. But we are caught up through August with the city. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for Seth?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Michael Bissett here for our October program project update. And it's hard to believe we're already in October of this year. It's flying by now. Let's see. So on Feather River West Levee Project 1, I have good news on our first bullet, the environmental and cultural resources mitigation. So on the environmentals, our team has finalized all the necessary documents to complete this process, and we're now sending those over to California Department of Fish and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services for final approval. And Andrea and I are very optimistic that we're going to have this process completed hopefully by the end of this year. So I'll keep the board posted on that. I'm still on the cultural resources side, still trying to get contact with Enterprise Rancheria to figure out what their desires are for the materials that are still on hand with one of our consultants, our Far Western consultant in Davis. And board member Boomgardner gave me a contact today, so I'm going to be able to reach out to this person and hopefully move things along. But we're getting closer on that front. Also on the right-of-way transfers, still making really good progress there. But the majority of the properties have now been transferred over. We continue to have monthly coordination meetings with DWR to finalize that process. On Feather River West Levee Project 2, which is essentially the last 1.6 miles of levee repair along the Feather River West Levee, our team is making really good progress. The design status is we're soon to be receiving a 90% set of design documents, bid documents essentially. We're going to get those next month right before Thanksgiving for our internal review. Having good communications with the United Auburn Indian community on our AB 52 consultations. So those conversations are going well, which will really help as we move into the 408 process through the Army Corps. There's a Section 106 cultural resources process that you have to go through, and it's essentially working with the affiliated tribes, and all of our AB 52 work will go a long way to advancing those discussions also. And speaking of 408, so we have made contact with the Corps. We've submitted all our documents. They've done an initial review, gave us some comments just today, as a matter of fact. So our team will be reviewing those comments and advancing our design process. Okay, Sutter Bypass East Levee. That's the 5.2 miles of the repairs along the Sutter Bypass that we're advancing with our partner, Department of Water Resources. We've submitted alternatives analysis report, gotten their feedback. We're addressing comments there. They have a meeting set up for early next week to provide us some additional information. So that project is advancing quite well. The geotechnical explorations have been completed, so our geotech engineer is taking that information, analyzing it, and we'll be incorporating that into the design process. On the Orville Wildlife Area, Robinson's Riffle project, so that's a planning grant process with the state. We had our first workshop yesterday, as a matter of fact, so we had about 20 some odd attendees at this workshop from CDFW, and we had a rep from NOAA and DWR. So we had two different departments within DWR attend. So we got Chris and his team presented the alternatives that we have so far. I wouldn't say alternatives, but the master plan of ideas that we're looking to advance within that project. And we got a lot of positive feedback, and we'll be taking that feedback in and advancing our work. And I'm going to have Chris present next month at our November board meeting. So he'll run through the same presentation or a slightly revised version that we gave yesterday so that we can educate the board on where we're at in that whole planning process. So look forward for that to come next month. The boat ramp and campground project, I'm going to talk about that. I have a couple of slides and pictures that I'll present after this one, so I'll go back to that one. On sediment removal, we're still looking for funding opportunities for our Phase 2 work. We'll be submitting a grant through the NOAA later this year, so we're starting to work on that. We have a meeting set up with Senator Nielo for next Monday, and Mayor Kirchner, I just forwarded that invitation to you. If you can make that, that would be ideal. Perfect. Thumbs up. So good. So that's 10:30 on Monday. We're going to talk to the senator. And I'm also reaching out to staff at the Resources Agency directly to work on identifying funding for that project. So we're still doing everything we can to get the funding we need. The board approved earlier today on the consent item, the amendment with R&F. So we're going to use the available grant money from Phase 1, and we're going to advance the design for the Phase 2 project. So we basically will be shelf ready to go. As soon as we get funding, we'll be able to bid the project and go right out to construction. So we identified available funding within the Phase 1 grant. We're going to utilize that to design the Phase 2 project. On regional flood management planning, we've had some really good team meetings, and we're going to be doing a presentation to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board Coordinating Committee later this month to update that board on all the good work that we're doing through this planning process. We've been successful in getting grants for different projects. We were successful in completing the Feather River West Levee Financing Authority Prop 218 election. We used money from that grant to help with that process, and we've been advancing other projects that are important to this agency through that state-funded grant process. And so have our partners across the river. So we're going to pull together and talk about that information and highlight the fact that this process, this planning process throughout the Central Valley needs to be funded by the state in perpetuity so that we can all participate in the 5-year annual updates to the Central Valley Flood Protection Plan that the state is mandated to update every 5 years. So we think we're making really good progress on that front. Okay, so here's a picture. Let's get off the words here, look at some pictures. So this is the Thermalito After Bay. So Thermalito After Bay is on the right, that water body on the right, and the Feather River is on the left, and we're looking due west. So the outfall is right there in the middle. So the land mass in front of that is our area where we're going to be planning this new boat ramp and campground project. So you can see there's vegetation out there. There's some open space. You can't really see the existing boat ramp out there, but it's not in good shape. That's going to be converted to a non-motorized boat ramp like canoes and things like that. And we're going to build a brand new 2-slip boat ramp that we think will be very well received by the public. This next slide is another aerial, but you're right on top of it. So there on the left is the Thermalito After Bay outlet. And then you could see you could maybe see the existing boat ramp. It is right in that area that I'm highlighting. And this open space area, these two kind of brown areas, that's where the campground, the primitive, we call them primitive campground sites. We're looking at about 25 of them. Primitive being we're not bringing in water or power. So people will bring in their RVs or tents or whatnot, but they'll have to bring in all their, like water and stuff. There will be bathroom. There is one bathroom on site, and I believe we're constructing, Chris, 1 or 2 additional bathrooms? Potentially 2. So I'm going to go to the next slide, and that shows like a rendering of a concept of a layout for the campground. So it's a little bit bigger scale, so it's more focused in, but you can see these are all the campground areas, so the individual campsite slips. And then the new boat ramp is down here, and then the existing boat ramp is right there. So this is going to be the brand new boat ramp right there. So I'll get that away so you can kind of see what we're looking at there. And we're going to have all improved asphalt paving throughout, concrete paving, down to the boat ramp. We're going to have a pedestrian loop around. We're connecting to the Brad Freeman Trail. So we think it's, we're really excited about this project. It's being funded by the Wildlife Conservation Board and California Department of Fish and Wildlife through a federal grant process that kind of CDFW is funneling through to Sbfca. So right now this is a concept design. We've had a couple of different ones that we've been running through with the team, and then we'll be working with our funding partners on this process too, and then we'll get a preferred alternative, and then we'll start advancing the design process. So I wanted to keep the board aware of where we're at there, and it's an exciting project, and we're looking at bringing this one forward
Through the chair.
in the future. Yes, is there a question?
Michael, best case scenario, when do you see this open for business?
Best case scenario is we start construction in 25.
25.
So not next year, but the year after, and maybe open for business the latter part of the year, or maybe in 2026. Nope, one more slide. Yep. Okay, City of Orville levee repair. So we thank you to the board for approving task order 1. So that's essentially seed money, as Chris highlighted, that's essentially seed money for our team to, number one, evaluate the city's finances to see how they can fund future operations and maintenance and help cash flow into a levee repair project. And then number 2, and most notably, is to go after grant funding. So we're targeting a federal process right now, and I've been having communications with State Department of Water Resources folks, and we'll continue to advance those conversations. So now that we have this task order approved, we'll be able to actually bill our time to this process and put in more energy into the project. On our federal project with the Army Corps closing out the Tudor to Cypress Avenue project, the Corps is looking, as I talked about this to the board last month, the Corps has funds on hand that they want to wheel over to Sbfca to help them complete the punch list work for the Feather Water District. The Feather Water District facilities. There's valves that are the valves that incorporate the piping going through the levee have been leaking. Actually, the vaults, sorry, not the valves, but the vaults. And we look to make those proper repairs and make Feather Water District whole throughout this process. So we're working on that with the Corps, and we're also working on our Sbfca coordination to a sale of our federal credit to that agency. And we're hoping to have another meeting with Sbfca next week. I was hoping we had it scheduled for Monday, and it got postponed till next week because one key individual wasn't able to make the meeting. So we're continuing to have that active dialogue, and I'll be bringing information back to our steering committee, Supervisor Kimmelshoe and board member Hoppen in the near future, and then we can bring something back to the board for its consideration. So that's kind of where we're at there. FEMA remapping of Sutter County is on hold until we get the as-built drawings completed by the Corps contractor, so that's another outstanding item that needs to be completed there. Let's see, regional development impact fee. So Butte County was the last agency to approve the fee. That happened late last month. So we had a really successful meeting at the Butte County supervisors. So we were grateful there. City of Live Oak is now scheduled for November 15th. So they've sent out their notifications, their 30-day notifications. So we're on schedule for that meeting, and then we'll look to bring the last one, the last approval to the City of Yuba City in either late November or more likely early December. And then we will have all the member land use agencies on board. The last item is, I wanted to close with, here we are in October, flood season's right around the corner. There's a lot of press lately about El Nino coming this year. I gave you guys an article, Tara handed out an article that I found today, as a matter of fact. Just, with more information and more, I don't want to say warnings, but, I guess, more people thinking that we're going to have a wet year this year. And given the fact that we had a very wet year last year, reservoirs are all full. Now they're creating flood space, but they're in much fuller situation than they were last year at this time, where we were basically in drought. It'll be a much different story if we get the same type of precipitation and atmospheric rivers rolling through this coming flood season. So just to say to the board, we're very mindful of that. We'll be keeping a very close eye on what's happening. We have a lot of close coordination with the Corps and the state. So we'll be keeping a very close eye on the weather and the precipitation and how that affects what's coming into the reservoirs and releases into the river. And obviously coordinating closely with Levee District 1 and Levee District 9 in the state maintenance areas. So I know that's a lot of information, so I'm going to pause there, turn it back to the chair, see if there's questions from the board or comments. So thank you.
Any questions? Todd?
Yeah, I've got a quick comment, and it has to do with the Board of Supervisor meeting, Butte County Board of Supervisor meeting on September 26th, and Michael and Seth were both there, did a great job of pitching the regional development impact fees. And I just want this board to know how influential and important and well thought of this group is, because little did they know that we had an item on the agenda before their item had to do with flooding of two seasonal creeks north of Chico, Rock Creek and Kiefer Slough. And little did they know on the PowerPoint from our public works person, one of the items or one of the ideas on how to maybe fix that was to bring in Sbfca and have them give some ideas or possibly find out, see if they could come up with some funding for it. So I looked out in the audience towards the both of them and kind of saw their eyes get big. And so what I wanted to just say is this organization, I think, will have plenty of work into the future, even when we do fix all the levees on the west side of the Feather River. And the fact that I'm very proud that this organization is very well thought of in Northern California. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Todd. Any other questions or comments from Michael or?
To the chair. Excuse me. So Michael, with this supposed wet year, I have a concern with the Cherokee because basically there is no reservoir. So if we do get a heavy precipitation with all the pristine habitat in the channel, is there anything that we can do to possibly prepare for any of that? Because Richville's would be in peril, but you know they have that weak spot there at 162.
Right. No, that's a very legitimate concern, and we have been, as part of our planning process, the regional planning process, the Cherokee Canal is part of that process. So we've been coordinating with DWR. They received $20 million to do some maintenance out there. They're still trying to plan that out. We had a meeting scheduled with them several weeks prior, and they canceled that because they have I guess a draft document that they need to run up their chain, and they weren't ready to present that to us yet. So we rescheduled that meeting, I believe, for later this month or early November. So that isn't a great answer to your concern, because the DWR seems to keep kicking the can down the road a little bit and trying to figure out what they're going to do for a improvement project out there. But yeah, no, if we get another wet year like this year, we're just going to have to keep a close eye on the flows going into that canal and try to work with the state to minimize impacts. And maybe they could, advance planning of some of the low spots and getting like flood materials out there and prepped for if and when it's needed in the future.
I mean, is that something that, I could help facilitate, because there is a low spot on the Richville side. There's a few weak spots that, to be honest with you, to not prepare for it, I think would be asking for it.
Yeah, no, it's a great comment, and Chris and I will take that up at our next meeting. If not before, I'll reach out to Mark Liss with DWR, let him know, hey, this is a concern of our board, and we want to have a conversation about this so they're prepared for this year. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So Bo, I think you ought to do the D10 thing. Take the D10 down D Creek and ask for D forgiveness later.
Who's got a D10? Al's got a D10?
Any other questions for Michael, or any other comments to go to the order? Seeing none, meeting adjourned.
Good job, Mayor.